It was a September day, around 7 p.m. or 8. I was 20 years old. It was a pretty average day. Keep in mind, no one but me and my dog were home all day. I lived in a townhouse with my mom and two siblings and her boyfriend and my dog. The day I was chilling in my room was the basement, and I was just laying in bed watching YouTube, waiting for a move to come up with a friend, just relaxing. And I remember I started to get sleepy from just being bored and idle. So I started to doze off with the TV still on and shit. The thing is, I was home alone that day. My dog was the only one with me, but he was upstairs, posted up by the window like usual. Right, so eventually I doze off, and I start basically seeing myself sleeping in my room. Like I'm in third person COD caster mode in COD. And I remember trying to move and wake up because it felt so real. I thought I was still awake, but in the dream or whatever I was in, it's like every time I tried to get up or move, my body would just slump over or go limp. And I would try my hardest to move just an inch, even a finger, but I couldn't. Every time I would try, I would be stuck in that position, slumped over limp on my bed in weird positions. So in that state, I remember when I was laying there stuck. I recall out of nowhere hearing my sister at my door, which is close to my bed since my room isn't too big. I hear her call out my name and she's asking for me to open the door because it's her. I still can't move. Then I hear my brother along with her voice say the same thing. Next thing I know, I hear my mom's voice pleading to open the door for them to hurry up and open it. And the thing is, the whole time I thought it was real because it sounds just like them. It terrified me. There was something about it felt off-putting and not genuine. As I'm stuck there trying to process what the fuck is going on, I noticed that I can still hear my phone going off by my pillow, getting text notifications, and I also can still faintly see the LED coloured lights I have on my TV still on, and changing colours as well as hearing the background YouTube video playing. But when I start to realise that the door knocking got harder, to the point I thought the door wasn't going to hold up, then in one sudden second it stops. And within the state I'm currently in, I close my eyes, and once I did, I started seeing memories I lived through with my family and siblings when we were younger, and I started to cry. I noticed memories I either forgot about or that had never happened start being played out too. I started feeling drowsy in the dream or whatever it is, and my vision just goes black. It felt like forever, but then when I open my eyes again, I see that I'm no longer in a place I recognise at all. It was like a very woodland area, with a grassy opening area in the middle, surrounded by more dead wintry and trees around. I then see my dog, a small white Pomeranian poodle, running towards me, and I bent down as to pick him up, and notice as he's getting closer, it's not my dog, but morphs into some small, about 3 feet tall, I'd say, creepy, dark, black alien-like creature. It looked like a raisin, honestly, like that's how its skin looked, and very moist looking. Once I notice it's not my dog, it's too late, because it latches onto my right wrist and starts taking me over. But while that's happening, I get the urge to fight back, to not let this go on, because I want to leave. I was terrified. It then overpowers me and is on my chest on top of me, while I'm on the floor laying on my back. It's still latched onto my wrist, by the way, but I remember I start choking it out by the neck, and turn it over now. It's on its back to the floor like I was. I ended up overpowering it, and once I do, using all my strength, I wake up. First thing I notice is a very sharp pain in my wrist where it was latched to. It's tender as well. My whole body was shaking and had goosebumps, but I look at my phone and see that it's only been 10 minutes in real life, but it felt like eternity. I then go upstairs shook and scared. I find my dog just laying by the door to the basement. He jumps and is ecstatic to see me like he was scared too. I immediately take him with me and go outside. I also call my siblings to just make sure they're all good, and they're all fine. Everything felt so real at one point, I didn't know if it was a dream or not. I honestly thought I was like schizophrenic at one point because of when I kept hearing my family members' voices. I told my friend about it, and he thought I just had sleep paralysis, but I've never had that in my life ever. This stuck with me till now. I don't know. Feel free to let me know what you guys think about this. It was 4 years ago in 2018. It was a school night, as I was having trouble sleeping. I usually take a while to fall asleep, but this was like I physically couldn't sleep. So I decided to go use the bathroom. I browsed on the phone on the toilet and just went along with my business. The way the house was structured was there was a small hall connecting two rooms and the rest of the house. So when I walked back to the room, I looked out the hall to the kitchen as I saw it. In the kitchen was a glowing light, as it was a rectangle shape floating as it's surrounded by a black mass of a smoky substance. Now at first, I thought it was my fridge, but it was on the wrong side of the kitchen. Then I started to think of other reasons as it stared right at me. We kept eye contact for a minute as I was so scared. I didn't even think of filming with the phone. But I couldn't be staring all night. I need sleep and school is tomorrow. So I made a run for my room. As I shut the door, I felt it at the door as I closed, the big distance of the house in just a second. I didn't even lock the door. I didn't care and just jumped in bed and hid under my sheets. Next thing I knew, it was inside my room. I didn't even hear the door open. It floated above my bed as it breathed down my neck. It soon lay in bed with me as I was petrified to move. The next morning, it was gone as I slept with that thing all night. I tell my family and friends as my mother told me it was a guardian angel. I'm still not sure what I saw. My rational explanation? I was just tired. I was hallucinating because of it. It wasn't a dream or sleep paralysis, because I was moving and awake. I had another small experience with the same being as it slept in my bed again, as I just didn't try to do anything, and the next morning, it was gone again. Haven't seen or felt it since. My brain thought it was the shape of a human with a long black body, and the light was its face. If you know what I saw, please tell me, because I will not let this rest. I know what I saw was a real being. We were both aware of each other. We both knew we saw each other, so I must know. Was it a ghost? A shadow person? An alien? Angel or demon? Whatever it is, I'm just glad it was friendly. Let me start by saying that I'm a huge skeptic, and can almost always find an explanation for supposed paranormal encounters. I don't believe in ghosts, and am pretty good at using logic and reason to debunk most stuff. But I can't explain this one. I've been trying to for years, and I just can't. Now, let's go back about 10 years, give or take. I was living in a house in a small town, whose previous inhabitants all died of old age or natural causes. We rented the house and the landlord was the eldest son of the previous inhabitants. I would hear footsteps in the attic pretty regularly and see orbs in the dining room often, but none of that is very substantial and is easily explained away. Orbs could easily just be dust in the sunlight, and footsteps are easily explained because we had 2 large dogs and 2 cats who had full roam of the house. That's not why I'm here though. The reason I'm telling you this tonight is to tell you about the time that I was laying in bed one night and felt something I still can't make sense of. I was still wide awake, watching TV and scrolling whatever social media platform I was using at the time. So this experience wasn't a dream or anything like that. My bed sat in the corner of the room, with the headboard and one side against the wall. It was a small single, so it wasn't very big at all. I'm 6'2" tall and took up most of the bed. I was laying on my side facing the TV, with my back towards the wall, and the time was around 2 a.m. on a warm summer night. As I'm laying there relaxing, I felt the mattress compress behind me, as if someone or something had sat down. I felt something touch my shoulder as well. I can only describe it as feeling like a hand gently placed on my shoulder. When I turned around to see what it could be, there was nothing behind me except for the wall, but I was able to see exactly where the mattress had compressed. I was able to see the indent in the mattress, as if there was something with substantial weight sitting there, but there was nothing. A shiver ran down my spine, and I could feel a cold spot in the area where the thing was sitting. Only a second or two later, I felt the hand leave my shoulder and watched as the mattress decompressed. Whatever it was had left. I quickly got out of bed, grabbed my blanket and pillow, and went downstairs to sleep on the couch. I didn't even turn the TV off. I stayed up all night thinking about this experience and tried to make sense of it. 10 years later, I'm still unable to make sense of it. That was the first and only time that I've ever experienced anything like this. As a skeptic, I don't want to believe that it was paranormal. I want to think that it was something explainable, but I simply can't explain it. I still think about it regularly, and it just doesn't make sense. I want to know what you think. I want to know if you've ever had a similar experience, or if there is a possible explanation that I may be overlooking. Did something visit me that night, or is there a more reasonable explanation that I just haven't thought of? What do you think? In the place I live, the concept of UFOs or the paranormal stuff doesn't exist. No one talks about it, and no one has any experience to share that would be considered paranormal. Although I consider myself paranormally positive, I'm very skeptical of what I read or hear. However, I still don't know, and I can't explain, what I saw that night. Before I start, it's important to give a layout of the area around my home. My house is in the middle of a forest. The only visible building from my home is on the south side. Close to my home on the west side is a small hill, and behind it is a small village with less than 50 people. Although the village is not visible, I can see the hill from the windows in the dining room and the kitchen. Between my home and the hill is a heavily wooded area with a couple cliffs, so that makes the area between my home and the village inaccessible by any means. At the peak of the hill is a dirt road, I think 300 to 400 meters away from home, in a straight line and parallel to it. Back to the story now. It was a summer night of 2019, when my mom and I decided to go to the kitchen and prepare dinner. Since it was already dark outside, I believe it was 9 o'clock and without wind. To go to the kitchen, we had to pass from the dining room. Because that room was dark, I noticed two bright red lights on one of the windows. My mom noticed that too, but paid no mind at the time. On the other hand, I went to the window to take a better look because those lights were very unusual. I actually opened the window to have a better view. At first, I thought it was a parked car on the dirt road, with its rear lights facing my house. Then left and right to the big red lights, I saw other two red lights, smaller and much less bright. I found it very strange that one or two cars would be parked there, because there's nothing on that road, and it's only used by farmers with tractors when they go to the nearby fields. However, it wasn't yet the season for the farmers to work on the fields, and even if it was, tractors are very noisy. I never heard a sound from whatever the lights belonged to. That wasn't even the strangest part. For 2 minutes after I noticed the lights, they weren't moving. Then, suddenly, they started to make a small and smooth movement left to right, all of them still keeping the same distance. I can tell for sure that no cars could make such a sync movement, at least without a noise. I made extra sure to pay attention to any kind of noise. Then, I thought it could be some kind of a drone, but I also dismissed it because of the lack of a sound. I have since seen drones from up close, and I know for a fact that they are noisy. In such a small distance, I would have heard something. Also, it couldn't be something flying in the sky for two reasons. First, the lights were under the horizon line. They seemed to be for something on or above the dirt road. Second, no object or aircraft can do any movement from left to right and back repeatedly. Since it was pitch black outside, I couldn't make any shape of whatever the thing was. But the more I looked at it, the closer I thought it was, and the more I felt uneasy and like I was being watched. When I thought that it could be actually right beyond the fence, 50 meters from my house, above the tree line, the lights suddenly turned off. No movement up or down, nothing. Just the lights turned off. I stayed for a few more minutes to see if the lights would reappear or if I would hear any sound, but nothing happened. My mom, who also happened to look at the lights from the kitchen the whole time, told me that she also felt the same uneasy feeling, as if we're being watched. No, we weren't drunk or anything, nor do we have mental issues or taking any kind of meds. In fact, we never did. Especially my mom, who's a skeptic and doesn't even believe in the existence of anything paranormal. For the first time, left hints that it could be something else. I don't claim that it was something paranormal. Perhaps it could have a very easy explanation. Also, we never saw anything similar before or after the incident. In any case, whatever it was, I hope it wasn't there to stalk us. I wore the ring once when I was travelling in Russia. I remember that because something weird as fuck happened there. I don't think that before then I had any special association with that ring whatsoever. Stalin's dacha is up on a hill and surrounded by a little forest. It's quite pleasant, and there's still a resort around the bottom of that hill, I think. Most of the way up was just a road, but there was also forest around. When I got almost to the top, I went around through a little forest patch for the last stretch, right by the house. It was sunny and warm, but I vaguely remember feeling suddenly colder and getting a weird feeling, like slight panic. But not really. I would poetically say, like I was stepping into a memory. And I thought, well, it's around Stalin's dacha. Who knows what horrible shit happened? Anyway, I just took some steps away, sat in the sun, and had a break and some food before I was going to head into the house. When I got up and walked the rest of the path, that ring got crazy hot. But what's more, I couldn't get it off. I just tried to get up to sort of plateau the house was on quickly. Almost the moment I got out of that little patch of forest, the ring slipped right off, like nothing, and that whole feeling was gone as well. I was mildly freaked out. I was also entirely alone, so I know how this sounds. I remember even looking around for maybe something like an antenna or whatever, something that would maybe get iron hot. But it's not like my phone or whatever was hot like that. The really creepy thing is, and yes, I'm aware I would be expecting it and hyping myself a little, whenever I put this ring on now, I feel like it's making it harder to breathe, or that my stomach is hurting, or I get a headache. I just really feel immediate physical relief when I take it off. Every once in a while, like today, I'll come upon it and think, hey, I'll put it on, but I never last very long. I have no idea what to tell you or why. I have no real theory on this. I just know that's how it is. That's what happened. And I feel that's an interesting story the world at large could maybe have some theories on. Any ideas? From microwaves to ghosts to just iron? I live in a haunted house. It was built by my paternal grandfather in the 70s, and all four of my grandparents hang around the place. There's been everything from dreams to apparitions around here, but none of it is really frightening. We know the ghosts and their family. My grandmothers, both maternal and paternal, are the most frequent visitors. They're notoriously active during the holiday season, and today brought the first major paranormal experiences. The holidays have truly begun. My mother and my niece were bringing up boxes of ornaments for the Christmas tree. They opened them up, and my niece pulled out a velvet box. Now, we've been using the same boxes for ornaments since I was born. I've never seen this velvet box before. My niece asked my mother what it was. My mother took it from her and opened it. Inside was my maternal grandmother's Bulova watch, which her husband gave her on their wedding day in 1948. This watch is a big deal. It's a family heirloom, and my grandmother never took it off. My mother swears she didn't inherit it, and if she had, it wouldn't have been in a plastic tub of Christmas tree ornaments, nor would it have been invisible for 11 years. This isn't the first case of my maternal grandmother causing jewellery to appear either. When I was very young, my mother lost her wedding ring. It was gone for over a month, and one morning she opened her jewellery box, and it was sitting atop the earrings she'd worn the day before. When we were younger, our cousin Daniela always talked to us about how these two dolls she had were possessed and plotting to kill her. Well, one of the dolls belonged to her, and the other was a porcelain Tinkerbell doll that belonged to her older sister. They shared rooms, by the way. We never paid any attention to it because she had a wild imagination. Fast forward a few months, maybe even a year, into her telling us these stories. One weekend, my older sister and I stayed over at her house. It was four of us upstairs playing in their room, and we knew to stay on Daniela's side of the room and away from her older sister's side. It was a small room though, and we were children though, so we didn't listen. Somewhere in the middle of being all over the place, we knock down the Tinkerbell doll and it completely shatters. Immediately, we all freak out because we were told by our aunt to stay away from that side of the room, and we completely disobeyed her. Not to mention that my aunt was terrifying, so we knew we were in for an ass beating. We tried to think of ways to fix it, but there was no way. It was completely shattered. So we started crying, realizing we're screwed. We go downstairs and in tears to apologize to our aunt for disobeying her and breaking the doll. She starts yelling at us, then decides to go upstairs and clean up our mess. Here's where things get weird. Once she gets upstairs, she starts screaming at us again, but this time she's calling us liars. We run upstairs and come to find out that the doll isn't shattered. It's completely intact and back to where it was before. We immediately look at each other with our jaws dropped. It was then that my cousin Daniela went from being scared with us to almost being relieved and started saying, "I told you guys I wasn't crazy. The doll is possessed. I told you. The rest of us ran out of that room and called our parents to come get us. After that day, we refused to go back to that house. This happened to me about 2 years ago. I was working the grave shift as security for a thrift store in LA near Lincoln Heights. At the time, I didn't believe in the paranormal, and there was no question in my mind about it because I had never had any first-hand experience. That night, everything was relatively normal. The usual routine for the first hours of the shift, checking the exterior, the interior, the darkened alley in the back. Easy night, easy money. It was around 2 a.m. when it happened. I was finishing up my hourly rounds and had just cleared the back alley area. I got to the back parking area and started locking up the gate that led to the alley. As I was locking the gate, I saw a flash of bright light to my left in the main parking area. I turned to see where the lights were coming from when I noticed what looked like an older model tan Toyota Camry circling around the lot. I started hustling towards the car because I didn't know what it was doing there or how it could have gotten in. Did I leave the front gate open? Did someone hop the fence and break into one of the cars left in the lot? I had no clue, and I was getting ready for an altercation. As I started moving towards the car, it started driving towards me, then turned to its left and out of my vision around the corner of the store. I picked my pace up and turned to the corner, and the car was gone. Nothing. No tan Camry in the lot, no car driving down the street, not even the sound of a car in the distance. I checked the front gate, and it was secure. Checked the front door and interior of the store. Everything was secure. I couldn't explain it. At first, I thought it must have been an optical illusion of some kind, but then why didn't I see it driving down the road? And why was it just circling the lot like that? Completely shook me for a while. What's worse is that thrift stores are known to be haunted. I'd heard stories, but never believed them. After that, any time I walked down the hall that led to the bathrooms, I felt like someone was watching me in the dark. I told my co-workers at the time, even my boss, and they all knew the exact place I was talking about before I told them. This experience has also made me question some of my past experience and really threw me for a whirl. So about 5 years ago, my mother dated a guy that was really wrong in the head. Like hearing voices, lizard people download knowledge in my head, kinda wrong. I'm an open-minded person and always respected him firstly as a possibly mentally in person, and secondly as a maybe psychic guru he claimed to be. He would sometimes do some unexplained divination things that wowed my mom into believing the second one. One of those things was finding this rock. They lived in a house in the woods, and in one of their meditation sessions, he said he found something under the house. The next day, he started digging at a spot near the front door, and my mom was incredulous, thinking it was just another of his pranks or hyperfixations. She told me he spent the whole day digging and found a huge, roundish rock, like as big as a watermelon, and then he started hitting the rock with a hammer and split it to reveal a white, quartz-like brute crystal inside, like a geode but really tough. It was really pretty. A while later, she shows up at my house with one of the halves. The thing was heavy, like 5 kilograms, and tells me the story and that he wanted me to have one half as a gift. I said sure, it was pretty and had an interesting story, right? The next week, it stayed in my house was an absolute nightmare. The guy I shared the apartment with literally disappeared. Like went out with friends that night and was never found to this day. Police couldn't find him or anything. I was devastated because my friend was missing, started having bad sleep paralysis, no presences, but just waking up paralysed with an overwhelming sense of dread. Started having money problems, got a bad kidney infection. My father got really aggressive and rude to me out of nowhere, and many other things. One night, I woke up from a sleep paralysis screaming and had a panic attack. My boyfriend was sleeping with me, and I remember crying and screaming, "Get that rock out of my house, please, now!" I don't know why it was the first thing I said when I woke up, but he did that. In the middle of the night, he got up, picked up a 5-kilogram rock, and took it out of the building. Left it on a random sidewalk. Bless this man. After that, with the exception of my roommate, everything started to normalise and the weirdness went away. And my mom started to complain that my stepdad was kinda weird and aggressive, and their dog was sick. They had the other half of the rock. So shortly after that, they moved. The rock stayed at the old house and the dog got better, and the guy stopped being weird. Anyway, I don't know what you guys think of this. I tried to keep it short, but there are more creepy details in this story I can expand in the comments, if you want. I had this experience while working in 2013. I'm a photographer slash videographer, and had landed a gig shooting behind the scenes photos of an upcoming theatre production. The photos would be used as promotional materials for the premiere, which was coming up in a week. So I basically had to shoot the rehearsal. Just the director, actors and myself on the largest stage in town. It was very cool to see all of the seats empty, the director puffing away cigarettes and swearing loudly, in a place where you usually see the patrons dressed up and having a cultural experience. The play was all set in a beachside house that was built in the middle of the stage. There were several moments in the play in which all of the lights in the beach house were turned off, plunging everything into darkness, only leaving the emergency exit signs alight, pulling you out of the theatre experience and reminding you that it's all a play after all. So every time this happened, I put my camera down and listened to the dialogue in the darkness. The third time this happened, the flick of the lights, the darkness, I again put my camera down and patiently started to wait for my next shot opportunity. As I stood there, I started seeing something greyish being illuminated by the emergency exit sign. All of the actors and the director were to the right of me. There wasn't supposed to be anyone to my left, but I decided to turn and say hi to whoever was with me, so we could exchange silent greetings so as not to disturb the performance of the actors. So I turned. What I saw has never left my mind to this day, and has made me rethink my skeptic outlook towards such things. There stood a young girl wearing a dress. Her hands were outstretched towards me, but not in a way that you'd think she would grab me, but in a way of begging for something. Her palms facing up and her fingers barely curled. Her face was full of tiredness, grief, maybe disrepair. Her legs were just not there, and she was very slowly moving towards me, maybe floating. I don't know, it was a very smooth and gentle movement. So you could imagine with the level of detail I recall her, I must have had eye contact with her for maybe at least 2 to 3 full seconds, which to me felt like an eternity. After the third second was when I finally managed to unfreeze myself and react. What I saw was so vivid and so there that I instinctively turned my head away and swiped with my hand in her direction, as if to protect myself from the imminent collision between us. Not letting out a peep so as not to embarrass myself in front of the theatre people, I lit up the monitor of my camera with shaking hands and pointed it in the direction of the girl. She was gone. I continued my work with my eyes darting everywhere and wondering what the hell just happened to me. I really wanted to speak to the theatre staff about my experience, but I never did in fear of being ridiculed and potentially losing future gigs. I never made sense of this.